She fell deeply in love with a man she met online. A long-distance romance that felt like her second chance at life. For 5 years, she sacrificed everything without ever meeting him face to face. But one day, in a crowded mall, she saw the unimaginable. How did her dream turn into a nightmare? Stay tuned to find out.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on post notification so you don't miss our next story. All right, let's get to it.
Veronica Adeyemi stood in front of her bathroom mirror, tracing the lines that now framed her once youthful face. At 55, she had learned to smile through many storms, 3 children, an absent ex-husband, and a string of heartbreaks that had left her heart patched like an old Ankara fabric. She tied her headscarf tighter and sighed. Today felt different. There was a spark inside her chest that had been missing for decades. Ever since he came into her life. She had met him online, on a random evening when she had finally dared to create a Facebook profile. Her youngest daughter, Saad, had teased her endlessly, calling her Mama Old School for not having one. But Veronica wanted to feel alive again, to try something new, to remember she was still a woman deserving of love. His name was Daniel, at least that's what he said. The first message he sent her was simple but charming. Hello, beautiful. Your smile shines brighter than Lagos traffic lights at night. She had laughed so hard she nearly choked on her evening tea. From there it was magic. His words flowed like poetry dipped in honey. He called her his queen, his sunshine, and his sweet golden flower. Each morning, she'd wake to a good morning text that felt like a gentle forehead kiss. Babe, have you had breakfast? You know I can't think straight until I know you're eating, he'd write. She'd giggle, balancing her phone on the edge of the kitchen sink while she scrambled eggs for Saad. One evening, he called her on video. His face was shadowed, only his silhouette visible, but his deep laugh filled her kitchen like sweet music. Babe, why do you look so stunning? Are you trying to make me jealous of all the men in Lagos? Oh, please, look at this old woman, she teased back, shaking her head. Old woman? You're a timeless goddess. You make all those girls on Instagram look like roasted plantain. Veronica burst into laughter, nearly dropping the spoon she was using to stir her soup. She felt something awaken in her. Something thrilling, something she thought had died the day her ex packed his things and walked out forever. She started to change. Her friends noticed it first. She wore brighter lipsticks, styled her hair more often, and even started jogging in the mornings. The market women teased her whenever she bought tomatoes. Auntie Vero, is that red lipstick for market or for your new lover? Aha, you people should leave me she'd shout, laughing so hard her eyes teared up. But inside, Veronica felt reborn. For the first time in years, she wasn't just Mama or the woman whose husband left. She was Veronica, a woman who could still make a man's heart race. At night, after Saad had gone to bed, Veronica would sit on her bed, scrolling through their endless chats. They shared secrets, her regrets, his dreams, her fears, his promises. He even sent her short videos of his workouts, flexing and playfully blowing her kisses. Babe, you better not show these to your friends, I don't want the whole Lagos fighting over me, he'd joke. Trust me, they'd rather fight for a bag of rice, she replied, giggling in the dark. When she finally closed her eyes, Veronica felt like a teenager again. She didn't notice the bills piling up, or the fridge needing repairs, or the unpaid school fees. In those moments, she was loved. And love, she thought, was worth every sacrifice. Veronica had always believed that love was a young woman's game. But with Daniel, every rule she'd ever known about love was rewritten. They spoke for hours each night, whispering sweet nothings and sharing their deepest fears. Veronica would curl into her bedsheets like a shy girl on her first crush, giggling and clutching her pillow. Babe, you know I would cross the Atlantic Ocean just to hold you tonight, Daniel would say, his voice low and husky on the call. Ah, you this man. Stop it, I can't be blushing like this at my age, she'd reply, covering her face though he couldn't see her properly. Age is nothing but numbers. You're my dream, my heartbeat, he'd insist. She cherished these moments, holding on to every word like a love song. During the day, she would replay their voice notes as she went about her chores, humming to herself. Meanwhile, life outside the calls wasn't as sweet. Her children were growing restless. Saad would sometimes stand at the door, arms folded, scowling. "Mummy, you are always laughing and smiling these days. You've forgotten we need to pay for Jide's school project and the electricity bill." Veronica would wave her off, promising, "I'll sort it out. Don't worry, my dear." But deep inside, the guilt gnawed at her. Her second daughter, Amaka, was also struggling. She had just given birth and needed her mother's help, but Veronica was too busy scheduling evening calls and looking for new outfits to impress Daniel on video chats. On one video call, Daniel teased her for wearing a new headscarf. "Wow, you look like a queen in that headscarf. Did you dress up for me today?" "Who else would I dress up for? The tomatoes in the market?" she shot back, both of them laughing so loudly that Saad slammed her room door in frustration. Daniel would often send her random selfies, always carefully taken in dim lighting or cropped at strange angles. He claimed it was because he was shy, that he wanted her to see him fully only when they finally met in person. "I want to surprise you, babe. When I arrive, I want you to feel like you've just met an angel," he'd text. "Angel or Agbaro, we'll find out," she teased with laughing emojis. The conversations always ended on a sweet note. But the sweetness came at a price. Daniel started dropping hints about money. "Babe, my rent is due and my landlord is threatening to throw me out. I don't know what to do." The first time, Veronica hesitated. She counted her market earnings, her small savings, and sighed. "How much do you need, Daniel?" "Just $1,500. I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I sort myself out." Veronica transferred the money, ignoring her trembling hands. "Thank you, my queen. I owe you my life," he wrote immediately, attaching a string of heart emojis. Her heart swelled. She had never felt so important, so needed. It didn't stop there. Over time, she'd send him small amounts. $500 here, $300 there. Whenever he had an emergency. She told herself she was investing in their future. Meanwhile, her home fell apart. The fridge stopped working. Saad had to beg her classmates for lunch money. Jide's school project remained incomplete. But at night, when the moonlight filtered through her window and Daniel called her babe, all her worries felt distant. In his voice, she heard a promise of a future she never dared to imagine. Walks on the beach at Tarqua Bay, dancing under the stars, finally waking up beside someone who called her beautiful before dawn. And so, Veronica chose to keep dreaming for love, for laughter, for a chance to not feel invisible anymore. Veronica stood in the kitchen one afternoon, her hands deep in a bowl of soapy water, staring blankly at the window. A single beam of sunlight fell on her face, but her eyes were vacant. She had just sent Daniel another $2,000. He had claimed his landlord was on the verge of kicking him out again, and she could not bear the thought of him living on the streets. "Babe, I don't know what I would do without you. You're my everything," he had messaged that morning. Those words alone made her stomach flutter. She closed her eyes, imagining him lying in bed somewhere, thinking about her, loving her. Yet reality was knocking harder than ever. Jide came home from school early, his backpack dragging behind him. "Grandma, the teacher sent me home because we didn't finish paying for my books," he said, his small voice trembling. Veronica's heart twisted. She wiped her hands and bent down, hugging him tightly. "Don't worry, my dear. Grandma will fix it," she whispered, though she wasn't sure how. Upstairs, Saad slammed her bedroom door again. She had been quiet for weeks, her eyes accusing every time they met Veronica's. Veronica's phone buzzed. It was Daniel. "Babe, did you have lunch? I'm worried about you. I wish I could be there to cook for you." She forced a smile. Her fingers typed back quickly. "I'm fine. Just missing you." "I miss you too, more than you can imagine," he replied. In those few seconds, everything else melted away. It was as if he could reach through the screen and wrap her in the warmest embrace. She sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where her late husband used to read the newspaper every Sunday. For a moment, she thought of the man who had left her. Cold, harsh, never a word of appreciation. Daniel felt like the complete opposite. Gentle, appreciative, always telling her she was special. Later that night, after putting Jide to bed, she sat alone in the living room scrolling through her chats with Daniel. She laughed softly at his jokes, some silly, some so sweet they made her heart ache. "Babe, I saw a woman today who looked just like you. I almost hugged her in the supermarket." "Oh really? You would have caused a scene," she wrote back. "I would have told her she was the most beautiful woman in the world, until I realized she wasn't my queen." Veronica clutched the phone to her chest and closed her eyes, savoring the words like melted chocolate on her tongue. Outside, the neighborhood was dark and quiet. Somewhere nearby, a baby cried. Veronica's eyes opened slowly, returning to the small cracks in her world. The unpaid bills, the fridge that hadn't worked for weeks, the credit calls from the bank. She glanced at her worn-out wallet on the table. Inside was barely enough to buy food for the week. Still, when her phone lit up again with Daniel's name, she didn't hesitate. "Babe, can you help me with something small? I promise it's the last time before I come to you," he wrote. She stared at the message, her fingers trembling. For a moment, her mind screamed, "No!" But her heart, desperate for love and warmth, pressed send. As the transaction confirmation flashed on the screen, Veronica felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Her love for Daniel was a storm, thrilling, wild, and impossible to control. But somewhere, deep inside, a small voice was beginning to whisper a terrifying question. What if the storm was leading her to ruin? Veronica woke up with a pounding headache that morning. The sun crept timidly through her curtains, painting thin golden stripes across her room. She sat up slowly, feeling the weight of the world pushing down on her shoulders. It had been another restless night of calls and whispered promises. But this morning, the glow she usually felt after hearing Daniel's voice was gone. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new message from Daniel. "Good morning, my beautiful queen. Did you sleep well? I dreamt of you again." She stared at it, her fingers hovering above the screen. This time, her heart didn't flutter. It sank. Downstairs, the house felt colder than usual. Saad was seated at the dining table, staring at a bowl of Gary soaking in water. Her eyes looked empty, her cheekbones sharper than Veronica remembered. "Good morning, dear," Veronica said, trying to sound cheerful. Saad didn't respond. She simply stood up and carried her bowl to the sink, the sound of the spoon clattering echoing sharply through the room. Veronica watched her daughter walk away and felt a deep ache pulse in her chest. She had sacrificed everything to keep love alive, yet the love in her own home was dying silently. The fridge was still broken. The empty shelves inside seemed to mock her every time she opened it. There was a single onion, half a sachet of tomato paste, and an old pepper. That was all. Veronica shuffled to her small wooden stool and sat heavily, pressing her palms against her temples. The door swung open, and Jide ran in, holding a piece of paper. "Grandma, I drew a picture of you," he said, his voice bright and hopeful. Veronica forced a smile and took the paper. It showed a woman standing on a beach, wearing a flowing dress, her arms wide open. Behind her was a stick-figure man with a big smile. "That's you and your friend from the phone," Jide explained innocently. Her throat closed up. The drawing felt like a cruel mirror reflecting the life she had imagined, a life that might never come. She pulled him into her lap and hugged him tightly, pressing her cheek into his small shoulder. "I love you so much," she whispered, her voice cracking. He giggled and hugged her back, unaware of the storms raging in her heart. Later that day, she received another call from the bank. This time, the voice on the other end was sharp, firm, almost angry. "Madam Veronica, your repayment deadline has passed. We must take legal action if you do not settle immediately." Veronica felt her hands go cold. She promised again, her voice weak and trembling. She sat on the edge of her bed after the call, staring at her reflection in the mirror across the room. The woman looking back at her didn't look like a queen. She looked like a ghost of the strong mother she once was. Her phone buzzed again. "Babe, I need your help urgently. My friend has been arrested. If I don't pay his bail today, they might keep him there for weeks. Please, you're the only one I trust." She read the message over and over, her mind spinning. There was a time when she would have transferred the money without question, blinded by his sweet words. But now something inside her had shifted. Her hand trembled as she placed the phone down. She stood up and walked to the window, pushing the curtain aside. Outside, she saw a young couple laughing as they carried grocery bags. She imagined herself and Daniel doing the same, laughing in the sun, pushing a shopping cart together. But that dream felt further away than ever. Veronica pressed her forehead against the glass, her breath fogging up a small circle. A tear slipped down her cheek, tracing a thin, silent path to her chin. In that moment, surrounded by unpaid bills, hungry eyes, and cold rooms, she felt her world folding in on itself. And somewhere deep inside, a terrifying realization was beginning to bloom. Love wasn't supposed to feel like drowning. Veronica hadn't expected to feel so alive again. She was a mother, a grandmother even, and she had made her peace with loneliness years ago. Or so she thought. It was during a community health outreach event. She had volunteered to help register elderly women and distribute small food items. Between moving cartons of beans and giving out soaps, she met Emeka. Emeka was in his early 40s, tall, with warm caramel skin and a voice that wrapped around her like velvet. He had volunteered to assist, and every time he laughed, she felt her pulse quicken in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. After the event, he had insisted on walking her home. On the way, they talked about everything: life in Lagos, food, heartbreak, and those small everyday struggles that make you laugh and cry at the same time. "You're such a strong woman, Veronica," he said, his eyes studying her face gently. "It's rare to meet someone so beautiful and so kind." Her cheeks warmed. No one had called her beautiful to her face in years, not even Daniel, at least not in person. When they reached her gate, they stood there for a long moment, the evening breeze brushing softly against their faces. "I know this might sound strange," Emeka said, stepping closer. "But would you like to have dinner with me sometime? Just to get to know each other more?" Veronica's heart beat wildly. The temptation felt so close, so real. I have someone," she stammered. "Just dinner," he insisted softly, his eyes searching hers. She hesitated. After all, she reasoned, it was just food. One harmless evening. She agreed, but deep inside, guilt began to blossom even before she took the first step toward it. At the dinner, she dressed up in a simple but elegant Ankara dress, wore her brightest lipstick, and let her hair down for the first time in ages. Emeka looked at her as though she had walked straight out of a dream. They laughed over pepper soup and shared stories about youth, old music, and lost loves. She felt her guard slipping away, her laughter echoing around the small restaurant. As he walked her to her taxi, he paused, his face inches from hers. For a moment, the world stopped. The evening sounds blurred into a quiet hum, and she felt a wave of warmth spread across her entire body. He leaned in, and she felt herself leaning too. Their lips almost touched. Almost. But suddenly, she pulled back, her breath ragged, her heart drumming in her ears. "I can't," she whispered. Emeka looked at her with surprise and deep disappointment, but he nodded slowly. "I understand," he said softly. She stepped into the taxi and closed the door quickly, her hands shaking. When she got home, she locked herself in her room and stared at her reflection for what felt like hours. The guilt choked her. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she thought of Daniel. His voice, his laughter, his promises. She wanted to call him immediately, but she knew she couldn't frame the words. Days passed before she finally confessed in a long, trembling voice note. Daniel didn't reply for hours. She thought her world would collapse. Finally, he wrote back, "I'm disappointed, but I understand. Promise me it won't happen again. I need to trust you completely, babe." She fell to the floor in relief, clutching the phone to her chest. She promised him she would never again let anyone come between them. From that moment, Veronica shut herself off even more from the outside world. Emeka tried calling a few times, but she ignored him. She had chosen Daniel. Her heart, her money, her life. They all belonged to him now. The house felt emptier with each passing day, as if the walls themselves had decided to retreat from Veronica. She moved through the rooms like a shadow, her feet barely making a sound on the tiled floor. Saad stopped trying to argue with her mother. Instead, she started coming home later and later, sometimes skipping dinner altogether. When she was home, she stayed in her room with the door locked, the blue light of her phone glowing under the crack at the bottom. Amaka called less frequently, always sounding rushed and cold. She asked only about practical things. Jide's school fees, whether there was food at home. Never about Veronica's heart or her dreams. Veronica's only true companion now was her phone. Daniel had become her entire universe. His voice notes soothed her more than any prayer. His selfies lit up her mornings brighter than the Lego sun. Babe, I think of you every second. I can't wait to wrap my arms around you. You know you're my only light, right? She would play his messages over and over, hugging her pillow as if it were his body. But as their relationship deepened, so did his requests. Babe, I can't renew my work permit. If I don't pay today, they will deport me. You know that would be the end for us. He wrote one afternoon. Veronica sat at the kitchen table, staring at her bank app. She had already drained her personal savings and dipped into her children's future funds. Even her small retirement savings. Money she had quietly stacked away for her old age were gone. Now, she found herself taking loans she couldn't understand, signing papers she didn't fully read, trusting only his gentle words to guide her. She tried to reason with herself. Each time she hesitated, she heard his voice. I love you, babe. I would do anything for you. Why can't you help me this one last time? Every time she heard that line, her resolve crumbled like a sandcastle against an angry wave. One morning, Saad burst into the kitchen. Her eyes were red and swollen, her voice trembling with anger. Mother, what are you doing to us? We don't have food. Jide needs new uniforms, and you keep sending money to a man you've never even met. Are you hearing yourself? Veronica felt her whole body go numb. I'm doing this for us, she whispered, her voice so low it sounded foreign even to her. For us, Saad screamed. This isn't love. It's madness. Saad stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard that a picture frame fell from the wall, the glass shattering into sharp, glittering pieces across the floor. Veronica bent down slowly to pick them up, each shard reflecting her distorted face. She paused, staring at one jagged piece. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Later that night, she texted Daniel about the fight with Saad. Don't let them get in your head, babe. They don't understand what we have. You and I, we are soulmates. Let them be jealous. He wrote back almost instantly. Her heart softened again, like butter left in the sun. She went to bed that night with her phone beside her pillow, the screen lit up with their endless chats. She whispered to it softly, as if it were his ear. I believe you. I'll always choose you. Outside, Legos thundered on. Car horns, faraway laughter, the hum of generators. But inside Veronica's world, there was only one sound. The quiet echo of her trust turning into chains. It had been nearly 5 years since Veronica first saw Daniel's charming message slide into her inbox, changing the course of her life forever. In those 5 years, she had given him over $500,000. Money she didn't truly have. Money she stole from her future, her children's education, her grandson's small dreams. Her debt had become a monster. The bank sent threatening letters almost daily. The neighbors whispered about her whenever she walked to the market. The woman who once brought extra tomatoes home for everyone now returned empty-handed, her basket echoing with silence. Her house no longer felt like a home. It was a shell echoing with unpaid bills and memories of laughter that had turned into sobs. Veronica began having trouble sleeping. When she did sleep, nightmares haunted her. Images of Saad and Amaka turning away from her. Jide standing on an empty school field alone. Daniel's face fading like a ghost into the dark. Daniel still wrote her every morning. His messages remained sweet. His words still honeyed and warm. "Babe, I woke up missing you so much today. My heart aches for you," he wrote. "I want to hold you soon. I can't keep living like this," she replied one night, tears soaking her pillow. "I want that too. But I need your help to make it happen. The landlord is threatening me again. And my flight ticket, I need a bit more so I can finally come and be with you forever." Veronica stared at the message for hours. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely hold her phone. She had given everything. There was nothing left to squeeze out. She looked around the bedroom. Cracked walls, faded curtains, and the small family pictures that now felt like strangers' portraits. That morning, she went to her church and knelt alone at the back pew. She didn't pray at first. She just sat there, her tears falling freely onto the cold floor. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked like old wood. "God, is this really love? Or have I lost my way?" She stayed there for hours. When she returned home, her heart felt raw but strangely resolute. She opened her phone and called Daniel on video. He didn't pick up immediately. Her pulse roared in her ears as she tried again. Finally, the call connected. His silhouette appeared as always, the background dark and vague. "Veronica, my queen, you look so tired. Are you okay?" he asked, his voice smooth as ever. She took a deep breath. "I can't do this anymore. You either come to me now or this is over. I want to see you in person. No more excuses," she said, her voice trembling but firm. He paused, silent for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. "Babe, I want to, but my rent and flight ticket. If you can just—" "No," she shouted, surprising even herself. "No more. You come now or this is over forever." There was another pause. Then, his voice softened, turning sad and pleading. "Please, babe, promise. If you help me this last time, I will be on the next flight. 1 week. I swear on my life." Veronica felt her breath catch in her throat. All the love letters, all the midnight confessions, all the sweet promises pulled at her like hooks in her skin. Tears blurred her eyes. Against every last piece of sense in her body, she agreed. "I will try. Just this last time," she whispered. That week, she sold the last piece of her mother's gold jewelry. She borrowed money from old friends she hadn't spoken to in years. She swallowed her pride, making humiliating calls and promising to repay debts she knew she could never cover. Finally, she gathered the money. Over $500,000 gone now. She called him one last time. "I have the money, Daniel. Will you really come now?" she asked, her voice fragile as spider silk. "I will. Promise. Just wait for me," he said softly. She hung up, her heart a swirling ocean of hope and terror. As she lay in bed that night, clutching her phone to her chest, she whispered the words she needed to believe more than anything. "He will come. He loves me. He will come." Outside, the wind rattled her windows like an ominous drum, as if the universe itself was warning her of the final storm yet to come. Days turned into weeks. Veronica counted each one like beads on a rosary, each day echoing with Daniel's last promise. Just one more week, babe. She kept her phone close at all times, beside her as she cooked, slipped under her pillow at night, even clutched to her chest as she prayed on her knees. But the phone stayed silent. His messages trickled in at first, scattered and vague. "I'm sorting the last travel documents, babe. I can't wait to see you, my queen. Just a few more days, trust me." Then they stopped altogether. Veronica tried calling. Again and again, each ring slicing through her like a blade. No answer. The familiar silhouette no longer appeared on her screen. She checked his social media pages frantically. One by one, they began to disappear. First his Facebook, then Instagram, then his WhatsApp profile went blank. His display picture vanished as if he'd never existed at all. The silence roared louder than any noise she had ever heard. Veronica fell into a daze. Her home became a blur of shadows and whispers. The once lively kitchen felt like a tomb. The echoes of Sada's last screams replayed in her head. Saad had already moved out by then, unable to watch her mother dissolve piece by piece. Amaka stopped answering her calls altogether. Even Jide, sweet little Jide, no longer ran to her for hugs. He avoided her eyes, confused and hurt. Veronica stopped eating. She stopped bathing regularly. She spent her days pacing between her bedroom and the living room, checking her phone compulsively every few minutes. She heard her neighbors talking in hushed voices. That poor woman. She's lost everything for a ghost. She used to be so strong. Now look at her. Veronica felt herself slipping away. She saw her reflection sometimes and didn't recognize the hollow-eyed woman staring back. One morning, she stepped out onto her small balcony. She looked down at the street below. People bustling about their lives, children running after each other, laughter echoing from the roadside fruit sellers. For a terrifying moment, she imagined stepping off, just letting her body fall and disappear along with her dreams. But something pulled her back. Maybe it was Jide's small face, or the echo of her mother's prayers long ago. She stumbled backward and collapsed into a heap, sobbing until her throat ached. That afternoon, with the last few coins in her wallet, she forced herself to the mall to buy some bread and cheap canned milk. Her movements were slow, mechanical. She felt invisible, drifting among the crowd like a lost spirit. Then she saw him. She froze, every drop of blood in her body turning to ice. There, by the electronics store, laughing and chatting on a phone, stood Daniel. He looked exactly like his photos, tall, confident, with that same easy smile she had adored in countless videos. But now he looked real, solid, flesh and bone. For a moment she thought she might be hallucinating. But then she saw it clearly. A new woman at his side, her arm looped through his, her eyes bright and trusting. Veronica's mouth fell open. Her groceries tumbled to the floor, scattering across the polished tiles. Daniel turned slightly, his eyes sweeping over her without a flicker of recognition, as if she were just another face in the crowd. The world around her blurred. Sounds became muffled. Her knees buckled, and she clutched a nearby pillar to keep from falling. Her phone slid out of her hand and cracked on the floor. She bent to pick it up, her fingers trembling violently. When she looked up again, he was gone. The woman she had built her life around for 5 years had just walked out of her reality, taking with him her trust, her money, her dignity, and leaving behind a broken shell of a woman. Veronica stood there, surrounded by fallen bread and milk, her heart screaming silently in a language no one around her could hear.
Thank you for watching. We hope you have enjoyed it here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as this will help us grow and do more. Have anything to say about the story? Feel free to drop a comment.